You're listening to a Lost in the Groove segment.
Having good vibes with your bones and joints. Taking a trip into the groove. American groove into stoner world. Gonna
I just hope to God that nothing in the long run stops us. Nothing gets in our way. I want children. I want to adopt. I want to be with the man I love. And if things just don't work out with him, then I'm still going to go for it. And just do whatever it is and be on my own.
Because I
No,
can.
I'm just not going to repeat the things that I'm going to say twice. That's why I sit here like quiet.
Okay, so like short and simple, all right? I'm one of those people that are like not particularly happy about Pride Month because everybody's like out there fucking celebrating their asses off and like half naked on the streets, which is cool and all. Like, don't get me wrong, I like to have fun, whatever. But like, there is this whole part of history that people just don't get. And plain and simple, like I sent you earlier about like Venus Xtravaganza. So you're dealing with a person that was trans during the golden age of like the ballroom scene in the 80s in New York, and she was murdered. Like she was murdered because there was a documentary at the time called Paris is Burning and she was in it. And then like bam, like towards like the last 15 minutes of it, it's like, well, ladies and gentlemen, they found her under a bed strangled. So she dead. And that's it. Like, no one ever found the murderer. No one.
Was she found in the house of Extravaganza?
No, she was found in the Duchess Hotel in New York. So she was an escort, and what was believed was she was either seeing a client or somebody that she knew at the time.
I know, and it's like they probably could have tracked it down and figured out which person it was. You know,
but
like there are only so many people.
They're not going to do any of the work to actually go out and search for this person because, like, at the time, like, you're dealing with a trans person. So, honestly, like, the police department didn't really care to do anything about it. It was an open and shut case, pretty much.
But they did determine that she was strangled.
Correct.
Yeah. And possibly murder days or a matter of time before Christmas Day, but found on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
It's weird. Be found in a hotel on Christmas Day.
It was weird, too, because...
Whole thing's weird.
The whole thing is weird because when you deal with somebody that...
It's a murder case, of course.
It's a murder case. It's just a perfect example of what happens. What happens to people when you're put into extreme circumstances, such as that environment. You know, New York City, the crime, the hatred towards the gay community, the AIDS crisis, and all of the things going on, and trying to be able to enjoy the most out of your life from your friends, your peers. Like, you come from a background of makeup. There were people that were sewing and making dresses, doing makeup and design, figuring out different things they can do on their own. And somebody like this that like gets murdered at 23, her whole life is over.
Yeah.
There's no chance of her ever being a runway model, a fashion designer, living a simple life. It's all gone.
Well, I feel like you really I mean, not you, but I feel like we skipped ahead to murder right away. And I mean, the truth is, like, there's a lot. There was a good amount of life that happened. A lot of big, strong decisions. A lot of personality there, and a lot established just by the age of 23. I would say, documented in this beautiful or interesting
Controversial documentary, yeah.
Yeah, eye-opening documentary Paris is burning. But yeah, apparently left home at a young age. You said 14.
14.
You know, I mean, had parents of two different ethnicities. You said Puerto Rican and
An
Italian.
Italian.
Yeah. So already just kind of like not really feeling the family vibe. Like, what was it said that I don't know, Venus took on the name Venus very young and left home because Venus didn't want to embarrass her parents, was what Venus said in the documentary, apparently. And I mean, I think it wasn't so much like I don't like my parents or like they hated me or like that's not what I heard, you know. It was like more like
She was very close
just
to,
continue life the way that you want to, you know.
yeah. I mean, she was very close to her grandmother, primarily because of how her grandmother treated her. You know, her grandmother never really judged her, like respected her, and kind of saw her as a woman. And I mean, she kind of took care of her grandmother towards the end of her life, and like spent most of her time in New York there. So it's it's a very strange piece in a way where you have many ways of looking at this, right? Where you can say life was cut short. However, she did do a lot in that short amount of time, from the age of 14 all the way up to 23 when she was murdered.
There's some very brave decisions, some very
Oh, yeah.
passionate decisions. I would imagine like this person had like a lot like going on, like very like emotionally like charged inside, very like just feeling so much. I don't know, I like a je ne sais quoi. Are you filing your nails on the podcast right now?
Yeah, because I was about to be like, category is how much shade can you give?
Are you giving shade right now?
No, I was not giving shade, but I was just saying that like it's very frustrating. It's just very frustrating because
I mean,
I'm not
there's a
gonna.
few different frustrating things here. I'm trying to guess, like, because there's like this like dramatic pause. I'm like,
No,
what is
it's
it? And I can think of like a few different things that you could say right now.
the thing that's frustrating to me is my experience with the trans community personally has been very positive. Where I've personally met people that are trans and I've genuinely seen their stories and heard what they have had to say. And it really opened my eyes to that. But then at the same time, where you have one side that's screaming their narrative and what it's supposed to be and how is it supposed to be for somebody. And then you see somebody like Venus, which is a trans woman that just wants to be a model, that wants to have a family. She wants to be Venus.
A little bit more like self-focused. I do think that people are
Yeah.
definitely like on some
you.
type of like petition. Like they've got to like bring awareness to everything that's like this new thing. I mean, it's
I
not
hate
new
it.
at all. It's like
No, it's
been a
not. It's
thing
been going
for a
on for
while.
years. Yeah.
But it's like you're supposed to have like some type of like awareness platform and you're supposed to be like, I don't know. And it's like, yeah, that I think that's what you're trying to get at is that Venus is just more focused on like Venus and Venus's life. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think there are like some people that are more just kind of like more focused on themselves right now and like maybe not so like focused on identifying with like a giant group of people or like being represented or like different things like that. Like, but I am
You don't
saying
even
that
need to be represented. Here's the thing.
I don't
Okay?
know what people
No,
need.
no, you don't need to. Like
I
personally,
don't know, but
you represent yourself in the best way that you can, because when you're
should.
present, yeah, you should. Like you should be able to represent and say, "This is who I am," not where this is who I am, and these are all the rules that you have to abide to be around me because you have to. Like, that's not how it works. In the end of the day, the way that we love and accept each other is by listening to each other and learning from each other.
Well, I don't think there's any have to. I think there's like letting people know how you would like to be perceived. Like that to me is like everybody deserves to be comfortable in the space that they're in, like to an extent, and the people around them are not required to respond in a way that doesn't feel right to them, but like they shouldn't be like blatantly rude. Like people should be, you know, like appropriate. Like you can say like I don't agree with you, you know, without like being a fucking dick. Like I think people they lose all like common courtesy and like common politeness just because it's like, you know, because of what type of topic it is that you're talking about. And I do think that if people are going to approach the topic in a very aggressive way, you have to refer to me in this way and you're an ignorant piece of shit if you don't. Okay, that type of
Yeah, you're jumping to conclusions.
That type of approach is only going to get an aggressive approach back. I haven't seen many people approach it in a way that isn't aggressive. And I think that's because the people who go out of their way to like approach it are aggressive people from what I've noticed, but I don't think it's like across the board. I just think that like if people want a good reaction, they can kind of like give things in a good way, but also like understand like it probably feels kind of like why should I have to do things in any way? You know, like I'm under so much oppression. Like I get it, but it's still like no, you maybe shouldn't have to do anything in any way, and maybe people
No.
should respect you. Sure, like we don't have shoulds or shouldn'ts. Like they're not realities, they're perspectives. Let me finish.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is like no, maybe you shouldn't or you shouldn't or you should, but they're all perspectives. But the
Right.
truth is that think about what type of response you want to get out of people. If you just want to put your foot down and you just want to like then like you just put people in their place and that's just what that is. If you want kind of like a more cohesive, kind of friendly response possibility, then like, you know, maybe go for a more
Yeah.
But I mean maybe we're past the point of like friendly approaches. I don't know. It's just like it. I honestly think that it really just needs to be like talked about with like the people that are like really like close to you that you interact with in your life, and like sometimes not even that.
Yeah. I
Like
mean, it's where, for example, for the
it's
both of
different
us,
for everyone.
we both are a part of the gay community, but however, it's not necessarily like the fact where we represent every single person. We just represent ourselves. What we can represent is the people around us that we can celebrate. You know, for example, the friends that we make, the connections that we make with whether it's just being there with the other person. You don't necessarily need to understand the other person. You're not living their life or being their life. However, there is that common denominator of where if you look at a story such as Venus Xtravaganza, you can focus on the fact that she was a trans woman that dealt with sex work and was murdered for it. And there is no justification, and there's the appropriation for that. And how could they? But there's the other side of that too, where you have this incredible individual, thankfully, that we've been able to get on some film to actually hear what she had to say. And maybe that is the most important. It's not necessarily the fact that she's murdered, which again is really sad. But at the same time, that value, what she gave to the world, what she left to the world, it's invaluable. It's priceless.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, you know, like somebody struck down in their peak.
Yeah.
My mind wondered what Venus would have been like growing up, growing old, or, you know, going through the phase of like,
She'd be
I
on this
want
podcast, let me tell you. I'd be like, all right, let's get her phone number, email address. Let's do this. No, I'm not even
to.
kidding. Fuck yeah. I love those older queens. They're amazing. The ones that have survived. By the way, there are very few that are left. They're incredible individuals. They don't expect anything from you. Nothing.
Yeah, it's like an original time. I remember like hearing about drag as a kid and like seeing like people in drag and like wondering about it. I was very, very curious, but I knew that the drag scene then was extremely different than the drag scene is now. I
Yeah,
feel like
like
I
the
feel like it's
70s
like
with the Vegas
super.
showgirls.
I don't know, something about it to me it feels like it's like overly like materialistic these days. Like it's more.
Depends on the queen and also depends on where they're coming from. But
Yeah.
agreed. Yeah.
There's a part of me that feels like it's like before people were a lot more like resourceful and they had to like think a lot more and figure out more and be more creative, and it took more a lot like of like unique like individual creativity to create something. I feel like nowadays it's a lot more easy for people to like copy things or like look at stuff or, you know, just
Let
order whatever the fuck they want.
me see if I can find her.
I mean, it's still incredible. But the queens back then, I mean, there's just a different. I remember being amazed, like, some of the queens back then were married, had
Yeah.
families,
Yeah.
had children.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of married queens.
There are, keep in mind also,
There were.
people tend to forget that bisexuality does exist, and there are quite a number of people in the community that have sex with both, you know, and sometimes like in those situations, it kind of is where it's hard to explain because I didn't grow up in that environment at all. I'm going off of what I've heard from others that are close to me. It's a very like you're in survival mode 100% of the time. And every single person that you have a relationship with, whether it be kids, they become another part of you. Like you're always consistently in their lives, and you're not necessarily living together in the same environments, but your lives kind of correlate around each other in a very unique way. I sent you a. Her name
I'm
is
just.
her name is Dominique Jackson. Okay, she played in Pose, which is kind of like Paris is Burning, but a TV show. It's incredible. Dominique is an actual queen that was in the ballroom scene in the 80s. She's trans. She played Electra on Pose. Incredible actress. Just incredible actress. Gorgeous. I think she's in her 40s. And she's an example I like for myself, like, because it's a greater, like, an example of a performer that has a variety of experience. Like, she's been not only in the community in different ways, but experienced it also in different ways. So she's an open enough person that's like, I'm curious. What was it like for you? How was it like for you? What were the struggles like? I think also she was from Trinidad. She's from Trinidad.
Hmm.
A lot of cool people from Trinidad. Shout out to Trinidad.
Shout out to Trinidad. When
Shout out to Trinidad.
I was in like a pageant when I was in like I would say junior high, and it was like an international pageant, and it was placed in Atlanta, Georgia, and there were a whole bunch of girls from Trinidad. For some reason, they said Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, because Tobago is a part of Trinidad. It's a small island.
And the girls had like thong swimsuits, and like we'd never seen that before. I was much younger, so it was like whoa, 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 you know. But like they knew how to like model like really good, and like they were like really like comfortable with their bodies, and like we just accounted it to like the fact that like it's like warmer outside, and so
Oh my
like they don't
god.
wear as much clothes as often, and
Oh my
that's why
god.
us Midwesterners don't feel as comfortable like
I'm dead. I'm
in
dead.
swimsuits. I don't know. I was just like
Yeah.
these girls, like they're just so comfortable, like in like a string bikini.
The
It
thing
was
though is
eye opening for me. I was like, wow, cool, get it.
they're not
Get it.
they're not very gay friendly though. That's just
Mm,
it's just one of those things, and
they're just
we're
like more traditional.
yeah. So
Mm.
in her case, you know, she very much was traumatized from her experience, but what she survived and what she turned out to be is just incredible. Because like for the very first time, like I honestly felt like Pose was an honest representation of the trans community.
Mm. I think there's going to be all kinds of different types of
Exactly.
people, that
Exactly.
are
That's my
gonna,
point.
yeah, all kinds of different people are gonna make up that community. Also, don't think that everybody needs to be part of the community.
No.
Like, I don't know. I feel the same way about like politics. Like, I just kind of stay out of like the big like grouping of things.
I don't really give a fuck about what people think I have to say, you know, and how I say it. Like I will say how I feel and like my opinions, but I do agree with you. Like it's kind of the same thing with politics. It's where don't make me choose a side because I won't.
Yeah, I don't choose a party. Leave me alone.
I picked Mickey Mouse. That's a cool
What,
party.
like Minnie versus Mickey?
Yeah, you could do that, believe it or not. I think there's like you could vote for Mickey Mouse if I'm not mistaken.
I picked Team Edward.
Oh, that's cool. I don't know what that is, but that's cool.
You know, like Harry Potter. No, not Harry Potter. There's a Harry Potter one too, but with
No way.
Twilight, you pick like, Team Edward or Team, I don't know, whoever the fucking werewolf kid is.
It was 2008 or whatever it was. We're not going to remember this.
I'm Team Edward.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. See?
Team Hermione.
Oh my god. I'm Team Harry.
A Hufflepuff.
I'm Slytherin.
Yeah, I know. So we pick these teams, and it's like I'm okay with picking a team there because it's like fun, but picking teams otherwise, not very fucking fun.
Speaking of teams, I actually was talking with a friend of mine that was an old like queen back in the day, and I was like, what house do you think I would have been a part of? And I didn't say anything. And he immediately was like, Extravaganza.
Wow, you like knew like right away.
Immediately. Like, honestly, I would have been picked to the House of Extravaganza.
It's really cool how like the drag queens get to take on the house name, and it kind of becomes like their like last name. It's the same as like the geishas. They would usually take on like the house name.
Yeah, but there's a lot of responsibilities of being in the house. Like, it's not just people think like you just become a part of the. yeah, like people think like you become a part of a house, right? And that's just that. No, no, no. Like, do you have responsibilities? Like, you have shows you have to show up for. You may have to help out other queens. You may have to make some of your outfits or figure out like your
No, that sounds terrible.
choreography and things. Like, you have an actual like responsibilities. It's not just like cut and dry. You know, it's a job. You're
wonder
working in a house.
how many like houses there were back then, like if it was really that
there was-
common or not.
Well, the most famous are the House of Xtravaganza and the House of La Beja.
Yeah.
The House of Bendavis is another one. The House of La Beja is... The House of La Beja is the first drag house. It's the very first drag house ever. They're the most famous. They're like the Marilyn Monroe of drag houses. And the House of Xtravaganza is like the Jane Mansfield.
I feel you. It's like a new little like Jane Fonda.
What is a Jane Fonda?
It's the new girl in town. Twiggy.
Twiggy. Yes.
I love how they use the X. You know, like extravaganza. Like it's just like, to me, it's so like creative and artistic, and so just like, you know, like
Extra.
fuck this. Yeah.
That's what
extra.
it is. But
it's like to spell things like in the wrong way is like very like screw the system, you know.
a
And I
little
think all of
rebellious.
the, I mean, what do you? She obviously was like screw the system. Like it's not like she had like, you know, a job where she's like paying taxes and shit.
I'm actually curious as to why she chose the name Venus. Like,
I think it happened really young.
I
think
like the
sometimes
name
it just kind of
Venus.
happens. Like,
Name after a planet.
I think when you're like young and you have this like feminine thing like coming out, I think there'll be like this like name that like happens. It's kind of like this way that they start to identify like
Quantify, crucify, be thy holy name.
the other queen was like, the other queen was named Princess, and also like had that name like at a very, very young age. And I would feel like somebody might just kind of like start, you know, just naturally being called like Princess or Venus, or, you know, just like a very like feminine name. Venus is very feminine.
It is. It's very fitting for the House of Xtravaganza.
Yeah, I mean, Venus had no idea where Venus was going when Venus came up with that name.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's just another story that just keeps you wondering and curious at every corner. Because there's, yeah.
I mean, there could be like a police officer that strangled her. It could be any number of reasons that it wasn't like really looked into. And maybe that kind of thing happened a lot more
Back then, yeah.
Where they just have like unsolved murders, or yeah, I mean, you're right. Like people don't care as much about, you know, like people who don't conduct their lives in that kind of the way that they approve of. But
especially a trans person at the time.
I mean, she's in a very unsafe situation. Like,
true. She did put herself in danger.
At the time. Well, I mean, I don't think it's anybody's fault to be having a fun time and then somebody treats you like shit. It's not like it's her fault that she put herself in danger. You know?
No, but
like,
again, it isn't.
You would be safer not doing it. Yeah.
True. But hey, a girl's got to do what she's got to do. You know what I'm saying?
She should be allowed to support herself and pay her bills in the way that she wants in a safe way. That's a failure of New York City, in my opinion, but it's a whole other story too.
It really is. I mean, I'm from New York, and I'll tell you right now, New York State and government does not give a flying fuck about their people. Like, they do not care. Not a single bit. It's like the one place where we know our government gives zero shits about us.
Well, I would imagine that, like, what it was 1988. I mean, it's quite
Yeah.
possible that just homosexuality was illegal at
No,
the time.
homosexuality.
There's certain
Homosexuality.
states where it was still like,
It was
considered
legal in New
sodomy.
York, but keep in mind it was at the time of the AIDS crisis. So a lot of people were putting a lot of blame and shame on the gay community because people were afraid due to that. But if I'm not mistaken, gay marriage was not gay marriage. I'm sorry. Homosexuality was legalized in 1970. But it didn't really honestly change anything.
They did it state by state. And it's same-sex activity between consenting adults has been legal since 1980. So yeah, they couldn't just like arrest anyone or be like, we're not going to look into that murder because, yeah, so that's not a reason. But I know that there were a lot of different states that would still like.
Keep in mind also, like, at the time, the police department in New York was very much run by the mafia.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say something that could get me into a lot of trouble, but I'm going to say it anyway.
But we're at the end, so like who even listens?
Who isn't even listening? The Russian mafia has a system that they do out in New York, which is very simple. They make sure that if they want something to be gone or disappear, they make it happen. We're talking cars, furnished apartments, people.
Would they want to murder Venus?
No, what I'm saying is the mafia has also, keep in mind, like, sex work and escorts sometimes will mingle with mafia members. So it's a problem. They clean it up.
I could have swore you said sex escorts.
Sex escorts. I have
sex workers and escorts. There's sex escorts.
Well, sex workers, an escort is a sex worker. So
I just am in my mind. I'm like kind of tired and high, and I was like, "Did he just say sescort?"
Oh my god! I think with that we should wrap it up. Wrap up the sex court. So, if you want to check out, you sescorting? Are you sescorting? Because I'm definitely sescorting.
Sex. Yeah, I knew a girl that, when we were all younger, she moved out to LA. She was a escort.
Whoa, that's kind of hot.
She came back and like told like escort stories.
Did she get like a boob job? She did get a boob job.
No, she just had boobs, dude.
She had boobs for days?
No, not for days, but she had boobs.
She had boobs. So, if you want to check out American Groove, you can find us at Instagram at American Groove Pod. And if you want to check out the podcast, you can find us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, even though I don't post anything, at Lost in the Groove Pod. And everybody is celebrating Pride Month. Rip off your pants, shirts, and just have some little tidy whities to walk down the Sunset Strip. All right. Catch you on the next one. Peace out, motherfuckers. Cocksuckers.